When I began my senior year, I came across one of the most influential and iconic figures of the Beat generation, Allen Ginsberg. I bought his collected poems and filled my time with reading his work. After a while, I noticed similarities between he and I, being haunted by my past and desperately trying to escape to a better life, and being afraid of openly being myself. For Ginsberg, it was homosexuality, but for me, it was poetry. I felt as if I couldn't tell anyone I wrote. It was my deepest secret. I filled my time with scribbling lines and little blurbs that came into my head at random. I was trying to find that certain groove of my writing. I wasn't good at it, and I knew that, so I needed to be educated on it. I watched interviews of Ginsberg explaining how to write poetry, and the answer was frankness. I needed to write the same way I spoke. I had to commit to it. Poetry is sincere talk, and I learned how to write very personally and was getting better each day. I filled notebooks with my observations and thoughts. I wrote about my mentally ill mother and my traumatization from her reoccurring bipolar disorder episodes. I learned that I needed to take a step back and understand myself and my feelings. It took me a while, but I understood who I was, and I learned how to articulate that into my poetry. I needed to change, and so I did. I became more sincere, more understanding, and more respectful. I reserved judgments, and I was living in a state of tranquility and was significantly calmer, but there was still something hanging over my head like an unfriendly burden. My mother and I had this uncomfortable relationship. I felt as if her illness had stolen my adolescence. I developed depression and blamed her for it. But after my self-realization, I confronted her about it to salvage something that had long ago been broken. My mother is not the source of my depression, it is my realistic views of life and my approaches of it. Today I still read the poetic works of Ginsberg, and I still write poetry, aspiring to someday be a writer. I can honestly say that his poetry and life of Dharma helped me become a better writer, a better person, and more importantly, it saved the relationship between my mother and I. Allen Ginsberg, my savior.